Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, everyone. I am Sharon Green Middleton, Vice President of the City Council, representing the 6th District. I also serve as Chairwoman of the Economic and Community Development Committee. We are here this afternoon for two bills, and that's 21-0051 and Bill 21-0052. At 2 o'clock, we were supposed to hear Bill number 21-0054, the rezoning of 605 South Caton Avenue, but because of public notices not posted, we had to cancel that hearing. And then also at 2:10, we were supposed to hear Bill number 21-0056, Urban Renewal Canton Industrial Area Amendment, but because exhibits were not prepared and submitted, we canceled that one as well. In attendance, we have, and I'm going to go down the list, members of the committee, John Bullock of the 9th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, there you go. Councilman Mark Conway of the 4th District.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Ryan Dorsey of the 3rd District.
Thank you.
Councilman Antonio Glover of the 13th District. You're welcome. Councilwoman Odette Ramos of the 14th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Councilman Robert Stokes of the 12th District.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we also have present with us Council Member Z. Cohen of the 1st District and sponsor of the two bills that we are going to be hearing today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. And members of the President's Office, we have Nikki Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I see Aaron DeGraffin Reed,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
and I see Matt Stegman,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
and I see Lucy Font.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And representing the Mayor's Office, I see Nina Thimulus,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
and I don't see Natasha. Okay. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that if you are not speaking, to please keep yourself on mute. Please do not take yourself off mute unless you are recognized by the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself and the agency or organization that you represent. Once you have finished speaking, please put yourself back on mute. So let's begin. Bill number 21-0051, rezoning of 4900 Boston Street for the purpose of changing the zoning for the property known as 4900 Boston Street, Block 6820, Lot 55, from the I2 zoning district to the IMU2 zoning district, and providing for a special effective date. The public notice certificates were received. The bill was introduced on March 22nd, 2021, and the bill is sponsored by Councilman Cohen. Councilman Cohen, would you like to speak on this bill?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a rezoning with the intent to ultimately develop a restaurant on the site. This is an area that is dense with multiple other restaurants. It's, of course, near the 95 and 895 corridor, and it has received support, this proposal, from both the Brewers Hill and Canton Community Associations. So we are in support of this bill.
Thank you. The agency reports on the bill. The committee will now hear from agency representatives, and we'll start with the Planning Commission. And just a reminder, please explain for the committee the findings of your report.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hi, Matt.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Matt DeSantis, representing the Department of Planning. This bill, 21-0051, was heard by the Planning Commission at their April 22nd, 2021 meeting, and the City Council, beg your pardon, the Planning Commission voted unanimously, 9 members present, voting in support of this rezoning bill. However, the staff report that was prepared by the Planning Department was not in favor of this rezoning bill. So, I don't have findings of fact to share with the committee. I know that Ms. Carolyn Hecker, the applicant's attorney, is present. She provided findings at that Planning Commission hearing, and she could go into some more specifics about those findings. But I'll also note that the Planning Commission, they took note of the relatively small size of the parcel, the various commercial land uses in the vicinity, and a nearby PUD that allows a drive-through restaurant. And so those factors, along with the findings presented by Ms. Hecker, led the Planning Commission at their hearing to recommend favorably for this bill. But I'm happy to answer any more questions that I can.
Okay, and just checking, we don't have anyone from the Planning Commission on at this time? I don't see anyone.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, but we do
typically a
have,
member of the Planning Department reports for the Planning Commission.
okay. And as you stated, we do have Caroline Hecker that we'll hear from once we get through all of the agency reports.
I do believe that I see her in the attendee list. So hopefully Carolyn's available to provide some.
Yeah, we brought her up. We elevated her. So we'll hear from her once we finish the remainder of the agency reports. Caroline, we'll hear from you shortly. The Board of Municipal Zoning Administration. Do we have someone on representing BMZA?
Hi, Madam Chair. Nina Themelis with the Mayor's Office of Government Relations. A representative from BMZ was unable to attend this afternoon's hearing, but they stand by the report and deferring to the report and recommendations of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Nina. And the Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Baltimore City DOT stands by its bill report, which is no objection.
Thank you, Liam. City Solicitor's Office.
Hello, Madam Chair. This is Hillary Ruley from the Law Department. Obviously, we stand by our report. This would be the proper forum to find the facts needed for either a change or a mistake in the zoning, and to support that with whatever facts you find.
Thank you.
The bill, so long as the facts are found.
Thank you. Department of Housing and Community Development.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Stephanie Murdoch, Legislative Liaison for DHCD. We stand by our bill report. We defer to the Law Department.
Thank you. And the Baltimore Development Corporation, Louis Cardona. Did I say your name right?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Luis Cardona with the Baltimore Development Corporation. We stand by our agency report in opposition to this bill.
Can you explain, please, your opposition?
Certainly. The short of it is that this is a very heavily trafficked industrial corridor. It's the confluence of 2 major truck routes at Boston Street and Ponca. The particular site in question abuts active heavy industrial use and is catty-cornered from another active heavy industrial use site. And BDC is concerned that the introduction of a land use change at this particular parcel significantly risks complicating industrial truck traffic, of which many active and prospective users depend upon to be able to get in and out of that corridor freely. That's already a very overburdened intersection, not just with industrial truck traffic generating in and around the port, but at this intersection, but it's also a major commuter route. And so that is the summary of our opposition to this bill.
Thank you. The Department of Finance.
Good afternoon, Mara James, Legislative and Engagement Lead for the Department of Finance. We stand by our report and defer to BMZA and planning. Thank you.
Okay, and committee, what I'm going to do, we're going to hear from Caroline Hecker on this bill, and then if you have any questions, we'll honor your questions. Caroline?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg, Martin, Greenberg, on behalf of the applicant. I'd like to thank Councilman Cohen for his support and for introducing the bill. I can give a little bit of background about the property that might add a little bit of color to what's proposed here. This is a property that's located at the intersection of Boston Street and Ponca Street. And while it is technically located within the Canton Industrial Urban Renewal Area, it actually hasn't had an industrial use on this property in over 50 years. The property was actually acquired by the city in 1971, at which point it was zoned M3 under the old zoning code. At that time, the city demolished the structure. I think there had been an industrial use prior to that. The city demolished that structure, and the property sat vacant for nearly half a century. In 2009, the city council authorized the sale of the property as an unimproved lot that was no longer needed for public use. And the property thereafter was conveyed to a developer who had plans to construct a restaurant. And in fact, the city issued a permit in 2010 for a restaurant, but those plans never materialized. The restaurant was never constructed. In 2014, the city issued a permit to use the property as a motor vehicle rental establishment. And the property has operated as an Avis budget rental car business since that time. The property has recently sold to a new owner who proposes, as Councilman Cohen indicated, to construct a restaurant on this property. And unfortunately, the current zoning as I-2 does not authorize the drive-through component that is proposed in connection with the restaurant. And so we are proposing to rezone the property to the IMU2 district. Now, the IMU2 district, just to be clear, is industrial mixed use. It's another type of industrial district. It's not a change to a commercial district. But we do believe that the categorization of the property as I2 in the 2016-2017 rezoning and transfer Baltimore was a mistake. But as I mentioned earlier, there had not been a industrial use on this property since the 1960s, and it has most recently been a commercial use, a motor vehicle establishment. The prior permits that had been issued were for a restaurant, and in fact, on 2 of the 3 other corners of the intersection, there are existing commercial uses that were in place prior to transform as well. There's a Royal Farms on the west side of Ponca Street, and there's a Wawa gas station on the south side of Boston Street. So, there is, this area is not a heavy industrial corridor that it once was. And so we think that the city, when it rezoned the property from M3 to I2, was really carrying forward the prior zoning, but this was a mistake at this location because as I said, the property had not had an industrial use for many, many, many years. With regard to the findings of fact, we did submit a memo to the Planning Commission, which was attached, to their memo that was submitted to the City Council. I'll go through the findings briefly for your reference. There has been a slight increase in population within the census tract from about 4,600 people to just under 4,500 people, or 5,000 people in between the last census and 2019. So that we are seeing an increase in population, although this isn't a very residential area. There is some residential within the same census tract, and that further demonstrates the fact that this is not as heavy an industrial area as it had been. With regard to the availability of public facilities, the area is well served by public utilities. We don't expect there to be any negative impact as a result of the rezoning. Transportation patterns were mentioned by BDC in terms of this being on a truck route. That is true. We are not proposing to alter the access points to the property. We're not proposing to add curb cuts or impact any transportation patterns at all. This is a proposed use and a proposed zone that is compatible with the existing and proposed development in the area. As I mentioned, there are a number of existing commercial uses in the immediate vicinity. This site has not had an industrial use for many, many years. So rezoning it to a district that would be The IMU2 district is a transitional zone between the heavy industrial districts and the more commercial districts that you see as you moved westward towards Canton and Brewers Hill. Having an IMU zoning zone in this location is perfectly appropriate for both existing and proposed development in the area. The Planning Commission agreed with our findings when we had the Planning Commission hearing back in April. They recommend approval of the bill. And we believe this is consistent with the city's comprehensive master plan. It will support the goal of retaining and attracting businesses by permitting the property to be redeveloped in a manner that will create new jobs. With regard to the other factors that are required to be considered, the existing uses of the property within the general area of this specific property, as I mentioned, there are existing commercial uses both west and south of this site. The property itself has a commercial use that predates transfer from Baltimore. We believe that, as I said, this was a mistake to give this property the heavy industrial zoning that it currently has. The zoning classification of other property within the general area, there is property located a few blocks away that's IMU already. There is C4 zoning to the east as well. Again, this is consistent with a transitional zone like IMU2. The suitability of the property in question for the uses permitted under its existing zoning classification. The property is just over half an acre in size. It's too small to have a real heavy industrial, the traditional I2 use on this property. So the property itself really is not suitable for under its current zoning classification for a use that would be permitted by right. And then with regard to the trend of development in the area, we are seeing a significant increase in commercial uses along the Boston Street corridor, and this really is a continuation of that. We believe that the proposed rezoning will support the city's master plan. As I said, it will meet the city's goal of retaining and attracting businesses. It meets the needs of Baltimore City by creating new jobs for city residents. It meets the needs of the particular neighborhood. As Councilman Cohen mentioned, we have reached out to the local community associations. While this site isn't really directly within a residential area, all of the community associations in the area were supportive of the proposed rezoning. So for all of these reasons, I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, but we would respectfully request your support in rezoning the property to the IMU2 district.
I have one question. Talk about equity. How is that going to be implemented?
That's a great question. Traditionally, this is actually something that has come up a lot at the Planning Commission recently. A lot of the times you see these industrial uses being like the industrial areas are sort of forced into areas that have been economically underserved and disadvantaged. And I think there is often a tendency to try to retain industrial designations and heavy industrial designations in areas where that have not always enjoyed the opportunities for economic growth that other areas have. And I think that allowing mixed use development really does support the availability of services in these types of areas and in proximity to the neighborhoods that have not always enjoyed those services because of their proximity to heavy industrial zones that don't allow those types of uses.
Thank you, Caroline. And for the committee, I just want to make note that and as Caroline mentioned and Matt, that the Planning Commission did accept Caroline Hecker's finding of the facts, and she did go over much of it, much of them. It's in your packet, and a lot of the things that she mentioned was on page 4. So on that note, before we move to public testimony, does any member have any questions at this time on this particular bill? Hearing no questions, let's move on to public testimony. And again, thank you, Caroline, for that presentation. Okay, computer users, please use your raise hand function if you have any questions and you wish to testify. When called upon, please state your name before testifying. Attendees who call in will be unmuted one by one. Callers will hear 2 beeps when unmuted. If you do not wish to testify, please say so when you are unmuted. If you do wish to testify, please state your name. And I don't see any hands raised. And do we have any callers? And there are no callers. So is there a motion to approve the finding of the facts on this bill?
I move the finding of facts.
Finding of the facts.
Second.
By Dorsey and second by Ramos. Chair Middleton, yes. Councilman Bullock?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Dorsey?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Conway?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Glover?
Yes.
Councilman Ramos?
Yes.
And Councilman Stokes?
Yes.
Okay, that was for the finding of the facts. Do we have we didn't have any amendments. Is there a motion to move the bill?
I move the bill.
Move the bill by
Second.
Dorsey and second by Councilwoman Ramos. Chair Middleton, yes. Councilman Bullock?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Dorsey?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Conway?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Glover?
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Ramos? Councilwoman Ramos?
Yes.
Yes. And Councilman Stokes?
Yeah.
All affirmative. So there was a companion bill to this bill. So approval of this bill is based on approval of Bill 21-0056, the Urban Renewal Amendment. So for that reason, I will report the bill for a second reading, but will ask that the bill be held for approval of 21-0056 before being moved to third reader. Is that understood by the committee? All right. Hearing no questions, next bill, Bill 21-0052, rezoning Block 6458, Lot 004, and Block PSCO, Lot 8085, for the purpose of changing the zoning for the property known as Block 6458, Lot 004, and Block PSCO, Lot 085, from the I-2 zoning to the R8 zoning district. Public notice certificates were received on this bill. This bill was also introduced on March 22nd, 2021, and the bill was sponsored by Councilman Cohen. Councilman Cohen, would you like to speak on this bill?
Sure. Thank you again, Madam Chair. Thank you to the committee. So looking at a rezoning of what has become a basically dead railroad spur, trying to bring some new residential and hopefully eventually commercial activity in that direction without, of course, impeding on the port or the Mizod or anything that could impede logistics or trucking, but again, continuing to expand the residential growth that we've seen around that corridor. And again, both associations, the Bruce Hill Community Association stands in support, and so do I. Again, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the committee for hearing the bill.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. The committee will now hear from agency representatives, and we'll start again with the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, again, Matt DeSantis with the Baltimore City Department of Planning. This bill was also heard by the Planning Commission at their April 22nd meeting. And this bill, the Planning Commission also unanimously voted in support of, and the Planning Department had also recommended favorably for this rezoning bill. So I will proceed to give a brief summary of the request, and as well as go over the findings of facts that were adopted by the Planning Commission. So as Councilman Cohen noted that the particular site in question is sort of this abandoned former railroad, very skinny, narrow land it's orphaned from the street. It's just to the east of 715 South Haven Street, and 715 South Haven, which is zoned residentially, and these two parcels have a industrial zoning designation, but since they're not connected to anything else, they're really they have been rendered kind of effectively useless. So in short, that's the basis behind the planning department's and the planning commission's support of this bill. The total area measures only about 50 feet wide by about 280 feet long. This is located in the Brewers Hill neighborhood. It's just to the east of the 700 block of South Haven Street. And also in the general area, just a block to the north, the 600 block of South Haven Street is currently being redeveloped with new townhomes. Scroll down my findings. Staff report. So the proposed rezoning would support the city plan of expanding housing choices for all residences. Since this parcel will ultimately be consolidated with the adjacent parcel that already has an R zone designation. The current I2 zoning of this parcel renders it virtually useless since it's too small and inaccessible for any future industrial use. And then regarding the needs of the particular neighborhood, as Councilman Cohen mentioned, there is a growing demand for additional residential units in the Brewers Hill neighborhood, which this rezoning will contribute to without causing any additional degradation to the city's also important industrial base. Regarding population changes, there haven't been really any significant population changes since the adoption of the current zoning map and now. The availability of public facilities are now expected to remain adequate for current and future uses of the property. Regarding present and future transportation patterns, the Baltimore Greenway Trail has proposed an alignment directly adjacent to the subject property, which will provide additional transportation options for residents in the area as well as those from other parts of the city. Compatibility with existing and proposed development for the area. As mentioned, this rezoning would enable this real estate to be consolidated with the adjacent 715 South Haven Street property, which is already zoned residentially, so that it can be incorporated into future redevelopment. So that the planning department and the planning commission are recommending favorably. The BMZA will comment separately on this bill. And then regarding the proposed rezoning to the city's plan, this proposed rezoning again supports the city's goal of expanding housing choices for all residents. A few more findings regarding existing uses of property within the general area. The properties in the general area of the site include a mix of industrial and row home residential uses. The zoning classification of other properties in the general area, 715 South Haven Street, again, as mentioned, which abuts the site directly to the west, is currently zoned R8. It was rezoned R8 through Transform Baltimore. The suitability of the property in question for permitted uses under its existing zoning classification is not adequate. The site is functionally obsolete for future industrial uses, given its small size and lack of street frontage. And it is more suitable being rezoned to the R8 as proposed, so that it can be consolidated with the abutting property. And since the enactment of the new zoning code, as I mentioned recently, a 7-unit townhome development to the immediate north of the site has been approved, which testifies to the very recent change in neighborhood character. So as required by the state land use article, the city council may approve the legislative authorization based on finding that there was either a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood or a mistake in the existing zoning classification. And it was the determination of the planning staff and the planning commission that the current industrial zoning was a mistake, when Transform rezoned the abutting property 715 South Haven to R8, these subject properties also should have been rezoned R8. So this bill would rectify that. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that the committee might have. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. And just for reference to the committee, the findings are on page 3 of your packet that was given. And I do see Councilman Dorsey with a hand raised for a question for you, Matt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, has the parcel block 6458 lot 004 been subdivided in some recent past?
Hold on. Let me pull up. I know that there are. Let me scroll over there in code map. I forget off the top of my head. Well, I can answer actually briefly. There has not been any recent subdivision action.
Okay.
For any of those parcels over there.
I'm asking because what is in the packet provided to the committee, showing on the, I guess this is the plat, kind of the sheet 58 that shows the properties outlined in red. It does not match what is shown on code map as the shape and size of that lot. On code map, it shows that lot extending about twice the size and extending farther south, as to also abut the next property to the south, known as 801 South Haven Street, which is a different owner than 715 South Haven Street.
Yes, yeah. So I'm also looking at code map. So lot 85, which is the parcel that's to the east. The southern extent of that is the same as the southern extent of 715 South Haven, and then the lot 04, which is in between 715 and the first parcel. Yeah, that extends further to the south. So yes, my understanding also, based off the plat that was submitted, is that only a portion of that parcel is proposed to be rezoned to the RA district. So the portion of the parcel that is directly adjacent to 715 South Haven Street. So if a subdivision application is needed in order to create a lot line there, and I say if because there's some funny rules when it comes to former railroad rights of way, that they have like their own rules where they are allowed to preempt local subdivision regulations. But if a subdivision is required, when a development is proposed, then it potentially could have to go to the Planning Commission for review.
Okay, yeah. As I said, the sheet that's shown to the committee here does not show that full parcel, and the bill does not specify the rezoning of only a portion of that parcel. It identifies the whole parcel for rezoning, and if we were, for example, to only rezone a portion of the parcel, then you would have, unless it was subdivided, you'd have a split zone parcel, which Transform sought to do away with, split zoning in general. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that.
Yeah, I think I would be comfortable saying on behalf of the planning department that if and in consultation with Councilman Cohen as the sponsor, if the intent is to only if the applicant's intent is to only rezone the portion of that parcel as indicated on the block plat, then it probably would be a good simple amendment to simply clarify that in the bill text. And even though Transform did seek to eliminate or reduce split zoning of properties, I think in this particular instance, since it is such an unusual case, I don't think the planning department would have any real objections to that being the consequence here.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
First, Councilman, I'd like Caroline Hecker if she could speak on this, because this is just showing how important the text must match and the exhibits are so important in matching the plat. Caroline, could you add to this, and then I'll come back to you, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg Martin, on behalf of the applicant. As Matt mentioned, in passing, the Public Service Commission has the authority to subdivide parcels. And in fact, this parcel has already been subdivided into 3 separate lots. And the correct identifier is included in the bill. I was just looking in my computer system here to see if I could find an actual copy of the subdivision plat, which I will send over. It has already been completed, but it did not go through the normal process where Matt would have seen it through the planning department, because it was handled by the Public Service Commission as part of the abandonment of the railroad that was there. So I can provide documentation to the committee and to the planning department as a follow-up to this, if you'd like.
So as Councilman Dorsey is mentioning, our records need to also, it's important that our records on the council supports that. Councilman, did you have any further questions on this?
Yeah, I think that's my only remaining point. We have Stephanie Murdoch from Housing here, and Code Map is maintained by Housing, and the Planning Department would probably be a good point of communication with the Public Service Commission. It would be great if, I don't know when the Public Service Commission did this subdivision, but, clearly if a property is being subdivided within Baltimore City should be notified so that its own records can reflect that in public tools like Code Map and elsewhere, and so that we're even at a basic level aware of that when we come to have these conversations. Without Caroline here, we wouldn't know. So I appreciate that we have some clarification on that, but can I ask that Housing and Planning take some next step here to open a better line of communication with the Public Service Commission in order to ensure that we're receiving communications of such in the future?
Can someone answer that?
Yeah, I can certainly understand the councilman's comment and agree with it, and also looping in DOT, specifically the property locations section, since they oversee all city block plats. So yeah, we can follow up. I can follow up with Housing and DOT contacts to see what the current process is, if there is one, in receiving this information from the Public Service Commission for future issues.
So how are we going to get this plat to match the text? Because
Chair, it sounds to me like what Caroline is saying is that this property identifier that is in the bill text is block 6458 lot 004 is the proper identifier for this portion of the subdivided property, and that with that understanding, the plat does in fact match the text of the bill. I'm satisfied that everything seems in order with respect to that at this point.
Thank you. Any other questions for Matt from the committee?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to follow up. I appreciate our colleagues' observation about this. Ms. Hecker said that she's got some documentation somewhere that she can send to us that there is indeed the subdivision because as you said before, Madam Chair, our documents have to match, and they don't currently. Is there a way we can get that like in the next 2 minutes so that we can, confidently vote on this?
I think they said that this does match, this particular one does match. Is that correct, Caroline?
Yes,
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Okay.
This is correct. I will chase down the subdivision plat and send it over.
But
so
you
that you
just
have
want
for
to
your
add
records.
it.
But yeah,
You just
but
want to add it to the bill file and
Sure.
copies to every council member, but this,
I'm happy to do it.
okay.
But yes, it is correct.
Send it to Jennifer Coates
Okay.
and then she'll disperse.
Okay.
I think as long as it's part of the bill file at the end of the day, I think that would be great. So I appreciate the expediting our request on that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Any other questions for the Planning Commission or Matt? Okay, moving on to the Board of Municipal Zoning Administration.
Madam Chair, Nina Thumlis with the Mayor's Office of Government Relations. A representative from BMZA was unable to attend today, but they do stand by the report in deferring to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Nina. Department of Transportation.
Madam Chair, Liam Davis, Baltimore City DOT. We stand by our bill report, which is no objection.
Thank you. City Solicitor's Office.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Vic Turvila from the City Solicitor's Office. You have enough facts before you to lawfully approve the bill as drafted.
Okay. Victor, while we have you, do you have any comments on the discussion that we just had a few minutes ago?
Well, it was an interesting conversation, that's for sure. My thought at the end of the day is if it was advertised correctly, we are in good shape to go on, and the bill does reflect the actual property that's being rezoned, we should be in good shape.
Thank you so much. The Department of Housing and Community Development, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Stephanie Murdoch with the Department of Housing and Community Development. We do stand by our bill report in support of this bill, and I do also appreciate Councilman Dorsey's comments around code map. It's a relatively new tool to the city of Baltimore, and we're constantly trying to improve it. So to that end, I will certainly reach out to planning and make sure that changes are reflected in that tool.
Thank you. And the Baltimore Development Corporation, BDC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Luis Cardona with BDC. We stand by our agency report, which is no objection.
Thank you. And Department of Finance.
Good afternoon, Mara James with the Department of Finance. We stand by our report and defer to BMZA and planning. Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee to any of these agencies?
Madam Chair, I just want to go back to Mr. Turvila. To be very specific, you're totally fine with how the plat and the numbers and everything that's supposed to go with the correct parcel that we're talking about is in the bill, and that is correct, and not the longer, because on code map it's incorrect. So I just want to make sure that you're fine with what we just discussed very specifically.
Councilwoman, yes, I am at this point, because at the end of the day, we want to do two things. One, we want to make sure the bill reflects exactly what's happening, but also what's been advertised. And as I understand this conversation, all of that is in order.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Okay, the committee has also received a letter from a written letter from the Brewers Hill Neighborhoods, Inc. in support of the rezoning. I know that Councilman Cohen had mentioned that, but we got one official letter from a community. We'll now take public testimony, and I'm looking to see if there's any hands raised, and don't see any. Are there any callers? We're checking for that. And we have no callers. And one last time, any questions before we take a vote on the finding of the facts? So do I have a motion for the approval of the finding of the facts?
I move the finding of facts.
Moved by Dorsey and second by Ramos. Chair Middleton, yes. Councilman Bullock?
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Dorsey
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Conway
Yes.
is a yes. Councilman Glover is a yes. Councilwoman Ramos
Yes.
is a yes. Gotcha, Councilman Glover. Thank you. And yes from Councilwoman Ramos and Councilman Stokes.
Yeah.
Thank you. The findings have been approved. We have no amendments. Is there a motion to move the bill?
Move the bill favorable.
Moved favorable by
Second.
Dorsey, second by Ramos. And Chair Middleton, yes. Councilman Bullock,
Yes.
yes. Councilman Conway,
Yes.
yes. Councilman Dorsey,
Yes.
Councilman Glover is a yes.
Yes.
And Councilwoman Ramos
Yes.
is a yes. And Councilman Stokes
Yeah.
is a yes. Thank you. We'll see this on second reader. And thank you all for attending. The hearing is adjourned and have a nice day.
Thank you.